I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along today as well. Today is Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. And as always, we promised a robust conversation, a robust program. We'll begin today's program by inviting you, as always do, to connect with us, be a part of this adventure, this excitement of creating and becoming community. What do you mean, Al McFarlane? I mean, when we can show up at a space like The Conversation with Al McFarlane and share our thoughts, our visions, our fears, without judgment, but with the earnest intent to tell our truth and to be listened to, with an earnest intent of listening to each other with a sense of empathy, connection, and compassion, but also a sense of being clear, sharpening how we present, how we show up, unafraid to challenge each other, but challenging in a spirit that is intended to elevate, to clarify, and to support our individual and collective advancement as community, as human beings. Well, what I want you to do, no matter where you're tuning into the program, you could be checking us out through our YouTube Black Press USA channel from anywhere in the world. You could be connecting through our Insight YouTube channel. Maybe you're with us from Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. However you're connecting, we appreciate you. We thank you. We have a request. We want you to, in the course of this program or after, jump over to the Insight News YouTube channel and become a subscriber. We're making steady headway. Our short-term goal is to get 400 subscribers. We are gaining on that. Our midterm goal is 1,000 subscribers. We believe that's going to happen relatively quickly. You can help us today, right now, by going to YouTube, Insight News, become a subscriber, share, like, tell everybody you know that there's an important conversation happening right now on The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Well, I want to begin with what I call the hot topics. And there's a story on insightnews.com. The headline is Ilhan Omar embarks on a new path no longer defined by firsts. And it's a piece written by Farnoosh Amiri with the Associated Press, posted yesterday and updated yesterday as well. Great picture of Ilhan. She always shows up magnificently, no matter what or where, and she does here as well. It's a file photograph of her, but the story has a Washington deadline. It says that President Joe Biden was winding up for a speech at Minnesota Clean Energy Facility when he spotted a lawmaker in the crowd whom he wanted to recognize. He said, open quote, "I want to thank you for being here," gesturing towards Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar during his recent visit. "You never stop working to level the playing field for everybody." For Omar, the quick flash of praise from Biden, who was neither her first nor second choice to be the party's 2020 White House nominee, was more than just a courtesy shout out during a presidential visit to her suburban Minneapolis district. It was a recognition of how far Omar has come after a rocky start to her political career that at times made her standing with the Democrats appear tenuous. Well, the story goes on to say that she has kind of moved away from the allure, and the weight of always being the first Muslim woman, for example, the first refugee from Africa, the first lawmaker to wear a hijab. And she is sort of in her maturing and in her building of experience and memory by doing the work. She's, taking on a broader, more expansive confidence in doing what she really intends to do, and that is to serve the people of Minnesota. It's a good story. Check it out. It's at insightnews.com. The second hot topic takes us back to looking at where Brittney Griner is. The headline says, Brittney Griner working on a memoir about Russian captivity. It's by Hillel Italy, Associated Press article posted a couple hours ago. Great photograph of Sherelle Griner, Brittney's wife, and Brittney Griner on stage at the 54th NAACP Image Awards on February 25th at the Civic Auditorium in Pasadena, California. This is a New York Dateline story. It goes saying she's ready to share the unfathomable experience of being arrested and incarcerated in Russia. Basketball star Brittney Griner is working on a memoir that is scheduled for spring 2024. Griner was arrested last year at the airport in Moscow on drug-related charges and detained for nearly 10 months, much of the time in prison. Her plight unfolded at the same time Russia invaded Ukraine and further heightened tensions between Russia and the U.S., ending only after she was freed in exchange for the notorious Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout, an NBA All-Star with the Phoenix Mercury. Griner has flown to Moscow, or had flown to Moscow in February of 22 to join the UMMC Ekaterinburg, a Russian women's team that she's played off and on off season since 2014. And she goes on to describing, just how terrible, how unfathomable, that was her word, that experience was, and that she's only now becoming able to speak publicly about and share, and she'll be doing that in the book. Anyway, it's a good story. Go to insidenews.com, check it out. If you have comments about it, we'd love to have your comments. Comment about this story or the previous one on Representative Ilhan Omar, and anything else. We enjoy connecting with you. Well, today's program, I have the fortune and the pleasure of introducing people active in community in the Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center area, an organization of neighbors who are concerned about plans to do changes around Highway 252 and I94 in North Minneapolis, from downtown Minneapolis actually to the suburbs. And Tara McCarthy is here, Nahid Khan is here, and I think Bill is here. If you bring them all in, if you would, just so we can begin this conversation.
Hello, Al.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. So you all represent an organization called the Highway 252 Task Force. It's one that you've created. And let's start with 101. Tara, I'll ask you to say, what is the task force, why it was created, what do you do, what do you want to accomplish by forming yourselves into this coalition or task force?
Okay, thank you, Al. So we're a group of people in our neighborhood, and we got together probably in 2016 or 17. I was prompted towards this because in 2014, unfortunately, our beautiful son Jason was killed in a car accident on 252 at a stoplight on 73rd. So we knew firsthand how dangerous this road was.
Who was killed? Who was killed?
My son Jason.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So, we had that experience initially, and then we started hearing rumblings from MnDOT that they were going to do some work to the 252 stretch to make it safer. So then we got interested and started talking to our neighbors, and the more we learned and the more we investigated, the more we knew we had to be really involved, because all of the alternatives that they mentioned from the beginning were not safer. That was clear to us that it wasn't their goal. It's a very long and sordid story. I could go on and on about it, but basically why we wanted to come on today was because they have released the scoping decision document that tells us the proposals that they're offering to us, and they are 2 different 6-lane freeways and a 4-lane freeway. And we all feel very strongly about these options not being a benefit to our communities. They take lots of properties. They are not safer than some of the ones that were discounted by MnDOT. They are bad for the environment, the rivers right here, so bad for the air, for the surrounding area. It cuts off our communities from each other. We already have a very high density of interchanges. We have the 694, 94, Highway 100, and 252 all right here in Brooklyn Center. So we wanted to come on today and make the plea to everybody to educate themselves, and we are also in a 60-day comment period for MnDOT. So it's really important that people learn what's happening and they make their voices loud, and make sure that MnDOT knows that we care about our communities, and we don't want a high-speed freeway going through our communities. It would be the likes of 94, 394 with semi trucks and high-speed traffic. So we have our website that we just got going. We're excited about that. So we've got lots and lots of information and talking points in there. And MnDOT has a website where you click on a button and then you are able to leave a comment. And so it's a very important time right now. It goes through May. Nahid, is it the 17th or 18th?
Friday, May 19th.
Yeah.
19th. Okay. So that's my spiel. And like I said, it's been a long, the group of us have put in thousands and thousands of hours researching this, and, holding MnDOT accountable. They haven't been upfront about any of the decisions that were made, or any of the focus, even from the start. So Nahid and Bill can say more about that.
Well, let's go to Nahid. Nahid, welcome to the conversation. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here. Just to jump in wherever you want to, my goal is to ensure that in the course of this conversation, everything that you want to communicate is communicated in ways that you feel comfortable. So feel free to redirect the conversation or to spend more time in any element. What I typically do is try to not only elevate the topic, but talk to the people I'm talking to in a way that allows you to share your story, how you came to this point of view, what your experiences is that guides and informs the action you're taking now. So that's kind of what will be motivating me in guiding the conversation. So again, Nahid Khan, thank you so much for being here. You can talk more about what the challenges are and why you are a partner member in the task force.
Well, hello, Mr. McFarlane, and hello, audience members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Really appreciate it. I'm a member of the Highway 252 Safety Task Force in Brooklyn Center. My name is Nahid Khan. I'm a more than 27-year resident of Brooklyn Center, and I really enjoy our entirely residential neighborhood next to the Mississippi River, which is one of our Twin Cities, and especially North Minneapolis, Brooklyn Center, and Brooklyn Park natural amenities that we really need more access to. And my motivation for being involved is I live close to Highway 252, so that's my route out of my neighborhood. And I'm very concerned about the dangerous conditions. And danger is not measured just by crashes and injuries and deaths on freeways, but it's also measured by the other impacts of freeways. Freeways are naturally harmful because they are artificial constructions that involve vehicles that have many pollution problems, and I'm very concerned about that. Highway 252 is currently an expressway, and it serves an almost entirely residential and fully built up area in Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park, as you know, next to the Mississippi River. And then I94 goes through Brooklyn Center and North Minneapolis on one side, a fully residential and commercial area that's fully built up. But then on the other side, we've got our beautiful North Mississippi Regional Park. And I'm really concerned about improving our neighborhood integrity and community livability, especially for our three communities, which are majority lower income, working class, and BIPOC, that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. As you know, Brooklyn Center is roughly 62% people of color. That's the most diverse community in Minnesota, followed closely by North Minneapolis at 60%, which is also followed closely by Brooklyn Park at 58%. So there are some major equity issues involved here with expanding our current expressway, Highway 252, to a freeway, and a 6-lane freeway at that. So that's a major expansion. And then the work on I94, which is already a huge freeway, and the work that MnDOT's proposing is to expand it further. So we've got major problems here having to do with huge increases in traffic. A 6-lane freeway is going to double the traffic on Highway 252. Much of it's going to continue down I94. This is completely unnecessary because if you left Highway 252 as it is, traffic would only increase by 4,000 by 2040, which is hardly an increase at all. However,
per day or per week or per what?
Total.
Oh,
so yes, so the total right now is 58,000 vehicles a day, okay. And the projection for 2040 is 62,000 vehicles a day, which is only an increase of around 235 vehicles. So okay. There's actually no need to increase Highway 252 and I94 for any sort of projected major increase in traffic. The increase in traffic is artificially created by building a 6-lane freeway, because it'll redirect traffic from all highways and roadways from a 12-mile stretch from Highway 169 to I-35W. Traffic that's already using freeways that already exist and serve the people of those neighborhoods well. So there's no need to redirect traffic from elsewhere, from higher income, middle class, and wider communities into Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, and North Minneapolis, which are lower income, working class, and majority people of color communities. So we are already overburdened by high amounts of traffic and all the problems that causes in regards to safety, health, environment, community livability, neighborhood livability, or neighborhood integrity, and all those equity issues. And any expansion of Highway 252 and I-94 is going to further overburden us without bringing us any benefits whatsoever. All the benefits of this project go to drivers and residents of areas much further out that that are already doing well. So they get the benefits, they don't get any of the burdens. Our communities get all the burdens and none of the benefits. So this is highly inequitable.
Powerful statement, Bill. Let me bring you in. One thing that would be cool, Bill, if you're comfortable with this, is walk people through the history. You've mentioned Tara has mentioned and described, I think, 252 as an expressway. And so a lot of language here. What's an expressway? What's a freeway? What's a 4-lane? What's a 6-lane? How do they look in people's minds? How do we frame, the image that gives us a sense of what it is? I'm thinking about, you mentioned 169 Nahid. And what popped in my mind immediately is 169 is a 2-lane, something, I don't know if you call it a freeway or expressway, but I've traveled it, and in my mind, I'm on a 2-lane, kind of fast way to get from Plymouth down to Highway 55 or Highway 12 or something like that. So give us sort of an excursion across the vocabulary of development, if you're comfortable, Bill, and maybe in the context, talk about, what was when the freeway or the expressway was created, why it was created, what needs did it meet or attempt to meet, and then why are we where we are now? I think that'll lead into what both Nahid and Tara have described already. That's my question, but you're free to go anywhere you want to go.
Okay.
That's what I'm curious about.
I'll answer that question and then a bunch of others you didn't ask. So,
okay.
You're not the only one who's confused about what's a freeway and what's an expressway. When our group first sent a survey out to hundreds of residents, we got those terms backwards. MnDOT defines an expressway as a roadway that has stoplight intersections, whereas a freeway is a grade separated freeway interchange. So an interchange being on ramps and off ramps. So you don't have the stop and go traffic. And a freeway can be potentially safer if it's designed right. But what they first proposed back in, I think it goes all the way back to 2014, is essentially the same awful, ill-conceived 6-lane freeway. And one of the things that's rather shocking is there seems to be some sort of business or political force pushing for an interchange at 66th. And that in itself is shockingly unsafe, and it violates some basic freeway design rules. So an important thing to understand is that, when you're on a freeway and you're traveling a mile a minute, it's important that you have time to read the signs, change lanes. If you're getting on, you need to accelerate. If you're getting off, you need to decelerate. And so the federal and state guidelines for rural areas are that you have at least 2 miles between on ramps and off ramps. So you have the curve of an intersection. The nose of that intersection is where the curve hits the straightaway. Mm-hmm. So 2 miles is the minimum for rural areas. In urban areas, they're hard to fit, so they cut that in half to 1 mile. MnDOT was proposing 1/3 of a mile. And that's insanity. It's complete insanity. One of their more specific rules from Chapter 6 of the Road Design Manual is that the distance from an on-ramp for a service to system interchange, that would be a side street like 66, to an off-ramp for a system to system, which is 694 and 252, a freeway to freeway, the desirable spacing is 3,000 feet. Adequate, by their definition, is 2,500. The absolute minimum is 2,000 feet. That's strong language. They usually say desirable or preferred, but absolute minimum. The design they showed us back in 2014 that keeps resurrecting itself, 830 feet. That spacing alone would increase the crash risk by 45% based on some NCHRP reference materials that I've researched on highway traffic safety. And then, MnDOT has never shared any of these safety issues with the public. They've been very opaque. We've demanded answers in writing. We've asked for crash analysis. And we've only been able to get information through Freedom of Information requests. So we have their technical advisory committee, the secret TAC meetings. We have their slides. And one of the more shocking slides is that the preferred alternative, which is the 6-lane freeway, guess how it rates for network crash safety? It's poor.
Poor.
And then for mainline crash safety along the main freeway itself, it's fair. So they're going to spend over $120 million per mile, and we're going to get fair and poor for crash safety. And that may not even be taking into account the insanity of putting an interchange at 66. Now, they do show the 4-lane freeway and the 4-lane low-speed freeway possibly having good mainline crash safety. It's still poor for network, and that would still, require them to space the interchanges appropriately. But it's just shocking to me. I mean, if you're a smart guy, if you were a civil engineer, and I said, Al, get a team of civil engineers, and I'm going to give you $120 million per mile, could you make a safe freeway? I bet you could, but only if safety was your goal. And their goal seems to be opening up 252 to major truck traffic, probably to serve the warehouses to the north. It seems to be diverting 22 million more vehicles a year from more affluent neighborhoods and making us a dumping ground for their traffic. And then that leads to all kinds of environmental issues. Nahid's husband is a professor at the University of Minnesota in environmental sciences, and he's done some extensive analysis that shows that we already have very high rates of asthma and hospitalization and early death from air pollution along the 252-94 corridor. And that could increase by 30 to 50% if they double the traffic. And they're not taking that into account at all so far in the scoping document. And one last thing, I know I'm going on kind of long here, but
you're okay. You're fine. Go right ahead.
Yeah, keep going, Bill.
One of the risks of having heavy truck traffic, going from 300 trucks a day to maybe 3,000, is the risk of toxic spills. I'm in the business of cleaning up toxic spills. I provide products for bioremediation for things like dry cleaning solvents. A single drum of dry cleaning solvent could completely wipe out the city of Brooklyn Center's water supply. And the capture zone for our wells extends to the east as far as the Mississippi River. It extends to the north as far as 73rd and to the south in 694. So anything along that 252 freeway could wipe out our water supply. It's really shocking. And
has that happened before, by any chance?
I would have to dig to see if it's happened from a truck crash. There's certainly been city water supplies wiped out by chlorinated solvents. TCAP, the Army ammunition plant in Arden Hills. Now, they didn't just spill a drum; they spilled probably hundreds of thousands of pounds. But that plume went for, I think, almost 10 miles. It shut down the city of New Brighton's water supply, and the Army ultimately paid them $48 million. So, it's a risk we have to consider. My personal opinion is that we could make a safer expressway. A freeway might be slightly safer if they designed it properly. An expressway wouldn't increase our traffic. There'd be much fewer property impacts. And we could have simple changes like separated left turn lanes. Like Tara described, when you're sitting in that left turn lane at 73rd, the cars are roaring by just inches away and your car is shaking. And by simply having a Jersey barrier or another separation, you could sit there safely and allow the traffic to pass. So for a lot less than 120 million a mile, we could make safety improvements without building this monster freeway that MnDOT wants.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say something too that goes with what Bill was just talking about. I'm not sure if I'm stuck or I see that Al was looking like he was talking, but am I okay to talk?
Yeah, I'm not hearing him.
Okay. So I lost my train of thought now. I was going to say that right now, we haven't mentioned in this interview that right now our interchanges are some of the most dangerous in the state, have the most crashes and fatal crashes. I think it's 3rd and 5th. 66th is 3rd most dangerous, and 85th is 5th most dangerous. And so we have never been in favor of, MnDOT often offers a do nothing solution, and we've never been in favor of that. Going through what I went through, losing our son, I would hope and pray that that never happens to any other families. Since Jason died, there have been 9 more fatalities on this road. So we are passionate about getting some solution so that people can be safe on this road. And okay, go ahead.
Oh, still not hearing you.
Yeah.
Mr. McFarlane, we can't hear you.
No.
No.
If I guess we can't hear Al.
Hi, if we continue.
Okay, let me.
Well,
Yes,
yeah.
well, may I jump in here, please?
Well, please do.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think there are quite a few other issues that we need to address. Going back to the issue of truck traffic, right now we only have a few hundred diesel-fueled heavy freight trucks traveling on Highway 252 a day. Truck drivers don't like Highway 252 because of the signalized intersections. So if we go from hundreds to thousands of such trucks on Highway 252, then that just exponentially increases the chances of a bad accident, bad crash with a truck, involving a truck, heavy freight truck, carrying dangerous substances like chemicals. And this could affect our Brooklyn Center groundwater supply. The only source of all Brooklyn Center city water is in the area between 73rd and 66th on the west side of Highway 252. And it goes right up to and under and around Highway 252. So this is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed openly, publicly. And we have had very little discussion about this in terms of safety issues having to do with Highway 252. And then secondly, truck traffic creates far more air pollution than regular cars. So this is a very serious health and environmental issue for Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park that everyone really needs to be concerned about. Secondly, we need to talk about the inequitable property seizure issue that's involved, especially with the 6-lane freeway alternative. We're looking at at least 95 houses and 10 businesses that are potentially taken or their property encroached upon, so partial taking, and then a lot more property devaluations of all the surrounding houses and apartment buildings and other properties. So this is a serious issue for removing valuable property from our city tax rolls and without any kind of replacement for it. And then the cities are also on the hook for having to make improvements to local roads to deal with the additional local traffic that'll be caused by a freeway, because as you know, there are 6 local access signalized intersections on Highway 252, and with a freeway they'll be reduced down to only 2 or 3. So that means all local traffic is going to have to travel farther on local roads to get to one of the potential interchanges. And this is going to cause more accidents and more traffic and more crashes. And even there are a need to widen roads and take in even more properties to do that, which is not addressed in the draft scoping decision document that MnDOT has released for this project. So this is a huge fail and oversight by MnDOT in refusing to address this issue and even answer questions about it from our city staff and city council members. So we are really kept in the dark about these local issues. Now, further on property seizure issues, like I said, Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park and North Minneapolis are the most diverse communities in our state. We have looked up the properties and their owners and found that a large number of them are owned by people of color, and many are first-time homeowners, and they have received special assistance with their mortgages through special programs to enable increase in home ownership for community members, from disadvantaged communities who had difficulties buying properties. So there's another really huge issue here with equity issues, that properties are going to be seized or encroached upon by people who had a lot of challenges to obtain them in the first place, and they will be displaced, and they will not receive full market value for their properties, even though MnDOT is now claiming that they will. The formula that they use is very unfair. I mean, firstly, the property is being devalued as we speak just by discussion of a potential freeway coming in. So it has not appreciated the way it should. And then secondly, by the time a project is approved, there's no market for that property. So saying that they'll get full market value for it is disingenuous. And thirdly, people do not receive any relocation assistance, even though MnDOT calls this whole process relocation and makes it sound like they will receive full assistance. It's all a euphemism. There's no relocation assistance whatsoever. And then people have to find and try and fund the purchase of equivalent properties, which is going to be difficult in our tight market, especially since our communities are the more affordable communities. They won't be able to necessarily move to other areas where they're going to be able to afford the same type of property for the same cost as they paid. Plus, they're losing their equity that they worked for to obtain these properties. So this is a really major equity issue that needs to be addressed. That
let me ask you: Are you able to hear? Are you able to hear me now?
We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
But this is a great conversation. Thank you for taking the time and for being as clear as you are being in expressing your analysis and your interest, I think, and that's critical and important. You mentioned when we began, Nahid, that you have lived in that community for, I think, 29 years, 27 years?
Yeah, 27 and a half.
27 and a half years. So
Yeah.
I was just curious, what was it like when you moved there? Sort of personalize this, because I want to get a sense. I mean, I'm asking the question because I remember I94 when they first dug up the I think 4th or 5th Street in downtown Minneapolis by Olson and Plymouth. I remember, that back before that, people drove up and down Lindale and Washington to get from downtown in North Minneapolis out into Brooklands and Anoka and places like that. And there's no memory of that. There's little memory of how we used to do it. So that's why I'm raising the question. How was it when you first moved there? What was community and what was the communications infrastructure? I don't know if the freeway was already in or if,
Well, yeah, good,
so
great
describe it.
questions. Yes, well, there's great questions. As we know, there's been a lot of historical research into the impacts of freeways in St. Paul and Minneapolis. The destruction of the Rondo neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods by I-94 and of I-35W through South Minneapolis. There's been a lot of research done, but for some reason, the harmful impact of the construction of I-94 through North Minneapolis has not been researched and recorded, nor has the harmful impact of building Highway 252 on the communities of Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park been researched and recorded. When I moved to our area in Brooklyn Center, Highway 252 was pretty new. And so I heard from the old timers many horror stories about, what's happened. So they said that in the 80s, the whole Highway 252 project was sold to the community on the basis of it would remove traffic from local roads, including West River Road, which is, a kind of, a main road in our area. But then once Highway 252 was built, it brought huge numbers of additional traffic through our neighborhood, far more than ever traveled on West River Road. And so all the old timers in our neighborhood really felt like they had been betrayed and sold out and sold a false bill of goods with Highway 252. And so now there's a lot of suspicion about expanding it into a freeway. And then secondly, regarding I-94 through North Minneapolis and Brooklyn Center, which was built slightly before, both the freeway and highway were built in the mid-1980s to late 80s. There was a huge residential area and also a commercial and industrial area in the whole area where I-94 is now. And that was all destroyed to build I-94. And so this took away a big economic and tax role situation for both North Minneapolis and Brooklyn Center. And, you can almost date the decline of Brooklyn Center, particularly from that point, because it started going on a sort of economic downhill in the early 90s. So I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but it's certainly indicative that there's a timeline, connection here that that really deserves to be investigated. And it has not been done so far. We've just had a short memory about the destructive impacts of both of these two roadways on our communities. And we need to look back on that and reflect and think about how it's going to be worsened for our communities with an expansion to I-94 and Highway 252.
Let me ask you
we have this beautiful park, the North Mississippi Regional Park,
Mhm.
which is the freeway, I-94 goes right through it. And it's not a nice place to really enjoy yourself because you're just surrounded by freeway noise plus that ugly freeway blight wall as well. And this totally separates the people of Brooklyn Center and North Minneapolis from a wonderful amenity, which is the Mississippi River. This is the largest river system in North America. It's such an inspiring site for us that that we need to really have access back to. And rather than expanding I-94, we should look at demanding a reduction in the size of I-94 and expanding that park for the benefit of the people of our communities.
Tara, you had explained that 252 is one of the most dangerous roads in the state of Minnesota. Those intersections you named in particular have a storied experience of personal injury and crashes. What do you perceive to be, or is there, given that, is there a problem that needs to be addressed? And then what do you understand MnDOT is suggesting that their activity seeks to address, and what do you think really needs to be addressed if it's different from what you're being told by MnDOT? And Bill, you can weigh in here as well.
That's a great way to phrase it, Al. I think that
I guess I really wanted you to spend more time, just out of respect for you and your memory, talking about your son and all the other sons and daughters and people that may have experienced injury or that may face injury in the future. How do you be mindful about their safety and their health? And that leads into the environmental considerations, the air, the asthma, all of that's related.
Right.
But that's a particular point of entry that you've got rarefied experience and knowledge in.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not going to get too technical, but I will tell you from my point of view. After we lost Jason, and I heard they were looking at improving the safety on 252, I thought, okay, a little late for us, like that was a point of anger for my husband and I, that that this road failed us, and failed many people. I don't know, what your listeners, I'm sure everyone's lost someone, but the effect of a death goes beyond the family and the friends and into the community. I thought that when they started talking about it, that if they were making safety corrections, that would be a good thing for everybody. But the more I learned about it, it just did not ever seem to me, or any of the experts that we've talked to, that it was safety that was their main concern. And when we look at if the intersections are already the fourth or the fifth and the third most dangerous, and if they say they're only increasing the safety by poor, to me that sounds like it's still going to be in the top 10, which it's a crime to me to think that they would spend money and still not care about human life, and be more concerned with moving traffic through. So it's extremely painful and hurtful. Nahid and I are also a part of a group that MnDOT put together, because they have been hearing for years and years and years that they are unfair to people of color and people that are, I forget what their terminology is, but they're they're not fair to people that need a little bit more help, the people that are taking the buses. Sorry. So we became part of this Equity and Health Neighborhood Association or advisory group. And even though our group has been consistently talking about safety and equity, every time we learn more about what their project is, whether we get it from the FOIA or, we've been looking at their website constantly. So we've been tracking. And even though they keep saying no plans have been made until, this scoping decision document was released. But it has always remained the 6-lane freeway. We can document it back to the beginning, and never in any of that do I see equity or safety being a priority for them. They say the words, but they're not doing the actions. And no matter how many times we ask and we show them the information that we found, we've just been sidestepped and kind of treated like our communities are lesser and don't matter, and that's just not right. I think the only reason, there can be no other reason to do an improvement on a road than to make it safer and better for people. And I don't quite. I just keep saying to myself, I don't understand. And that's what keeps me fighting, is because I just think at some point people, the environment, the thing they
your voice is
put at the top.
a little bit, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little.
Yeah.
If I can make a few comments, and I will get technical. So the existing expressway, Tara was talking about the ranking. I'm going to talk about statistics from, I think it was 2016 through 2019. The intersection at 66 had a crash rate that's 5 times the state average for a high traffic intersection. The intersection at 85th was 3 times the state average for a high traffic intersection. And the reason for that is they're very close to freeway connections. So when people come down 610 and go south on 252, they're going from driving at high speeds on a freeway onto an expressway. And what we need to do is slow them down, perhaps even shut down those intersections so there's more distance. And then, of course, coming up 94 from the east and the south, they're getting dumped onto 252, and boom, there's a stoplight a third of a mile later. So if we want to make it safer, we can make the expressway safer by having flashing lights, for example, saying freeway ends, reduce speed ahead. We can do separated left turn lanes, et cetera, et cetera. A freeway, if we put the interchanges in the right location and design them correctly, and that means an absolute hard no on 66, a freeway could be safer, but it does have big property impacts. And the reason for that is you have to have a grade separated interchange. So the freeway has to either go up in the sky or down below, and then the interchanges take up a lot more space and a lot more property than a simple stoplight right angle intersection. So if we have a freeway, it's going to harm our community in terms of property impacts. A low speed 4-lane freeway would bring some additional traffic and pollution, but less. Any freeway puts our wells at risk from toxic releases. Nahid's husband, David, put in the chat that he has several references of water supplies that have been wiped out from toxic spills. And one thing that I wanted to clarify on the well field, those wells, so the superficial aquifer is about 40 feet below Highway 252. The bedrock wells for our water supply are about top of screen 250 feet down. So remember the Army ammunition plant, the chlorinated solvent plume went many miles. It only has to go a couple hundred feet to wipe out our water supply. So that's a big deal. And as far as air pollution, it's already bad. And there are more people dying and being hospitalized from air pollution along the 252-94 corridor right now than are being injured in traffic safety issues. So, you know, we want to either have a safe expressway or a properly designed freeway. And then one last comment to wrap it up. Our website is an excellent resource so people can be informed. The last two city council meetings in Brooklyn Center, one a presentation by Nahid's husband on the 30th of March, and then the city council meeting where MnDOT presented and the city council asked some rather penetrating questions. Those are great resources. So in addition to comments to MnDOT that Tara mentioned, it's important to document those comments, but MnDOT's going to ignore them. So the real power is in your local government. Each city government has to give municipal consent. If they say no to a bad design, there is no bad design. So get active with your government, learn what you can, tell your mayor and city council, and I'll let the others finish if there's time.
Well,
do you mind if I speak?
Nahid, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
We're down to the last few minutes, but I wanted to get a sense of, you've brought up the question of equity for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an equity-driven solution? If the state has a gazillion dollars to invest in community, and if transportation is one of the ways investment can happen, is there a equity-driven strategy that accomplishes genuine and intentional sort of restoration or replacement or reinvigoration of communities that were decimated by prior policy and practice?
Great questions that we should all be thinking about when it comes to transportation equity. I would say the number one priority needs to be increasing public transit systems, because you can keep building freeways and they will all become congested. And in this case, sooner than later, MnDOT said, well, yeah, we know that Highway 252 will be congested again. So in that case, we won't be building another set of lanes. We'll be looking at public transportation options. Well, my question is, why not look at public transportation options now? So with the alternatives that are being presented now by MnDOT, we're advocating for dropping the 6-lane freeway alternatives entirely and call upon our community members to advocate the removal of 6-lane freeway alternatives on Highway 252 and expansion of I94. And we are asking for these to be replaced with the 4-lane low-speed freeway with full public transit added, as well as the 6-lane expressway, which has public transit, which I would like to see expanded.
Right there.
Yeah,
No,
so this
is
what we need to see as a start for equity.